the infamous Jeff Mays talking to us on some learning stuff. So, Jeff, I would love to hear what you've got for us to kick the year off with.
Awesome. Well, I am ready for the new year, as they say, and I'm sure you all are too. I went back over the holiday and looked at last year, and I think one of the things that I found with last year was it was a very different year than other years have been. This will be my 12th year doing insurance. And in those 12 years, this was the second slowest one that I've ever had, first year being the slowest. So that doesn't really surprise me because I was still learning a lot back then. But last year, I ended up having 32 new customers, which normally I end up with over 100. So very different. And I'm sure everybody here has got that same issue, with maybe the exception of Brian. He's growing. But the others of us are having issues maybe with finding as many customers or keeping as many customers. And the other thing that I found was that I'm doing a lot more work to keep those 32 customers. I'm averaging, several hours a day, like 8 to 10, trying to keep those customers by doing quotes for ones that are getting rate increases. Rate increases in my business have just gone astronomical in the last few months. I'm seeing a lot of customers with getting a rate increase that have no claims, no wrecks, no anything. And they're seeing rate increases. I had one yesterday, it was double. And there's no reason, apparent reason anyway. So when that happens, that becomes difficult. And go back out and what I call remarket, which means I take their information, go to all the companies that I have, and I attempt to find them a better deal. In that case yesterday, it's not good, but it's good that I did it yesterday because it's really fresh. There was not a better deal. And that's very frustrating because you would hope that in the case of somebody that's a good driver, has a good home, and has an umbrella policy, somebody that's a good customer, that they would be able to get a better deal. And that's just not happening right now. So it comes down to now the customer will go out and shop other companies and see if they can find something. And hopefully, I load them up with their proper information so that they will get apples to apples and not get something that's totally off the wall that makes no sense. The other thing that I'm seeing right now is that the fire line scores, which basically look at brush and trees and things around houses, the fire line scores have gone way up. And if you have a home or the customer has a home that has any trees around it, they're doing aerial photography now. These companies now have, I won't say they're drones, but they're satellites. They can use drones, obviously, but they're able to get cheap satellite information since the advent of AI and everything else. Travelers sent me one yesterday, said, or actually it was on Friday, said this customer is being non-renewed because of the junk in their yard. And I've been by the house, it's right off Fourth Plain, and I looked at it and I said, well, okay, I'll open this thing up. And I unzipped the file and downloaded the picture. And this guy has like 12 vehicles in his backyard that he's obviously making one or two out of that. I wouldn't have known that, nor would anybody else driving by because you can't see it. So they have canceled the guy, and that will be an issue finding anybody to do that now that I know the truth. So
Well, today we
information
have,
is much
I
easier to
believe
get
that
today, and insurance companies are using it to rate properly. I won't say they're improperly rating because that should have a higher rate or shouldn't be insured by an A-rated company anyway. So you're seeing a lot more issues in that respect, that companies are much smarter. They've got much more access to big systems that they never had before. So it's really becoming difficult in a lot of ways. It's probably going to get worse this year. I was looking at some industry averages this morning, I think the average in Washington increase on a car insurance policy was around 20% last year, and the average home was about 60%. So when you look at those two numbers, that's pretty scary. But the homes were definitely under, we had the cheapest home insurance, take a $500,000 house across the country. We had the cheapest insurance in Washington of any state. Um, and we probably have not risk like you do in North Dakota where you get hailstorms or you do in Texas where you get wind, but we have average risk of no matter how you look at it. And now they're catching up. So that's a lot of reasons for it. Obviously, the cost to rebuild, the cost to do the things that we need to do when we do have a claim. All these things are adding up to a giant for me. And I was finding myself over the holiday feeling like, what do I do? It's not a good time. And I'm sure maybe we've all had that feeling at one time or another. But you look at it and you go, this is not a good thing. And it's not where I want to be going right now. And I think the idea of doing something else, boom, flashes in your mind. And I kind of went back to an old story. It's a story that I learned a long time ago. You probably all did too. But it's a story out of the Bible. And it's the story of David and Goliath, the story of the underdog, and the lesson that that teaches. And I just kind of wanted to run through it real quick. I'm sure you all remember it. But the story of David was here's the shepherd boy who is living in a village, and their village is under attack by the Philistines. And the Philistines have this giant. He's a giant of a man. To read stories about him, he might be 12 feet tall, but he's a great big guy. And every day he's running into town and he's threatening them that, send me your best warrior and I'll kick his butt and kill him and off we go. And every day nobody picks up their sword or their shield and goes after him. And every day David comes home and he hears about this. And I think about that giant and I think about what happens in our world today, whether it's the lack of customers or the increase in rates or the inability to find whatever it is we're looking for, more employees or anything else. Those are giants in our lives. Every day we're coming home and finding those giants laughing at us. They're beating their chests saying, I got you, you little son of a gun. And they're running back to their village and laughing and just waiting to attack you and take care of it. Those giants aren't easy and they're not, while they may not be a 12-foot tall guy, they are just as big in our minds and they're just as big in our hearts as we start to try to do new things. Well, David comes back with an idea and he says, I can beat this guy. And he goes out and he tells his family, his brothers who are all warriors, and he says, hey, I'm going to go kick this guy's butt. And I can do it. I know I can. His brothers look at him and say, oh, they laugh at him. Just like maybe your neighbors and your family and your friends might laugh at your new idea. They're laughing at you saying, you can't do that. You're too small. You don't have the right weaponry. You don't have the right ideas. How are you going to do that? But you know what David did? He went over. In fact, they called the king. And the king said, well, come over here, kid, and I'll fit you with armor. In fact, I'll give you my armor. And he takes it off his armor holder and puts it on the kid. And of course, the armor is way too big for him. He's a little boy, and this is the king. And he looks at the armor and he says, I can't use this, king. Thank you. But no, I can't use this. I'll just go the way I am. And he says, I'm going to keep doing what I believe, what I have faith in. And I'm going to keep doing it. And I'm going to do it right up till tomorrow when I fight the giant. And the next day comes and he goes out to the river and he gets 5 stones, 5 little pebbles out of the river. And that's what he's going to use to fight this giant that's got swords and spears and shields and armor. And he's going to use these little pebbles. Now think about that in your life. Think about that in my life. What are the pebbles that we can use? Do you have 5 pebbles that you can put in your little sheath and take with you? Maybe you can find some new ones. Look at Cody. He found AI and he's found all these things a year ago. He wasn't doing a blog. He wasn't doing a live stream. He wasn't, all these things he's doing. He's found all these new pebbles to put into his sheath and take with him and use. We need to all be looking for new things to put in our sheath to use to help us grow and to beat this giant. So the giant's not going to stop. Whatever it is just going to get bigger. Think about those things you can use for that. Well, we know the rest of the story and we know what happened. So the giant comes down the hill, he comes into the village, and he starts to grumble and say, I can kick your butt and I'm going to feed you to the donkeys. I mean, he just ruthless and he's mean and he's nasty and he's laughing. Poor little David standing there in his shepherd outfit with his slingshot. And he's got his slingshot. In those days, the slingshot was those kind that you flip and throw into the air and the stone goes flying. And David's standing there going, let's go. Come on, big boy. And he takes out his slingshot and he puts a pebble in it. And he starts to swing it around. The giant's still laughing at him. He lets it go. And he sends it off and he hits the giant right there in the center of the forehead. Goliath goes down, face down, dead from one little pebble. What's that pebble that you're going to use that's going to help you get through this? What's the pebble that you can put in your slingshot that's going to make it happen? But more importantly, what's the moral of the story? The bigger they are, the harder they fall. That's not a bad moral. But I think it really is that you got to have faith. What really killed that giant? Yeah, maybe it was the pebble, but it was David's true belief and his faith that he would not only get through that situation, but he would go on. In his case, he went on to become king. What are you going to do today to take that pebble and make a change that'll take you to where you want to go? Because that's what we're all facing right now. I just wanted to share that story because I'm re-inspired today, and I'm feeling like I need to get out and do some new things. And I'm looking for those little pebbles to put in my pouch. What do you think, guys?
Awesome. Well, now I have to go do an open house, huh?
Yes.
that's that's great, Jeff. Good reminder. It's a great reminder. Good reminiscing on that story too.